So before we Ayan. So before we start, let's answer these following questions. Next, please. Yan. Actually, these questions, we already encountered this multiple times in different courses we take, like personal development, understanding the self, and even in introduction to philosophy. So, who am I, what I am living for, and why am I here? So, pwedeng kayo mag-heart kung nasagutan niyo na to sa sarili niyo. Hindi ko na kayo tatanungin kung anong sagot niyo. Alam ko naman nasagutan niyo natin. So, we need to answer these questions in order for us to assess and also to evaluate ourselves. And also, para masagutan din natin yung next question. Next po, please. Yeah. So, these are the 3 questions for teaching philosophy. First is, why do you teach? Bakit ka nagtuturo o bakit ako nagtuturo? Actually, we have many reasons and purpose of why we are teaching or why we chose this field, right? Gaya nga nung sa first group, diniscuss nila yung 10 reasons why people chose teaching as their field of profession. And second question is, what should you teach? So ano ba yung dapat kong ituro? Ano yung dapat kong ituro? So as we are elementary teachers, we are known as generalists. So dapat maging flexible tayo kung anong subject yung parang matatapat sa atin or ibibigay sa atin when we makapagtrabaho tayo as professional teachers. Pero ano sa tingin niyo yung parang basic thing or yung first thing na dapat ay maituro nyo sa mga estudyante nyo? So, do you have any idea kung ano yung dapat na maituro nyo sa mga estudyante nyo before yung specific knowledge? Pwede nyong i-chat sa chat box if you have any idea. So, yung clue, karaniwan siya naka-integrate sa objective sa lesson plan. So, wala. Siret na. Okay. So, yung base, yes, tama, Dayan. Thank you. Sabi doon is, the first thing that you should impart to your students is values and manner. Why? Because it has a significant impact on the students' achievement and also in their behavior. So, third and last question, how should you teach? So, paano ka ba dapat magturo? There are various strategies and approaches that may help you to teach effectively to your students. So, now in this module, we are expected to be, next po, please. So we are expected to be more aware of and be able to internalize their personal teaching philosophy. Second, more knowledgeable of the different reasons for developing their teaching philosophy. And lastly, we are expected to be guided by and be able to verbalize their own individual teaching philosophies. So there are several teaching philosophies that may be discussed later, and the reason behind why this philosopher developed this kind of teaching philosophy. So now we are moving on to this topic, developing a statement of teaching philosophy. So next po. Yeah. So the first topic is developing a statement of teaching philosophy. So your statement of teaching philosophy is a short document that functions both as a standalone essay that describes your personal approach to teaching and also as central component of teaching dossier. Dossier means it is a set and collection of documents. Pasabi na lang kung putol-putol ako And so, di ba nga sinabi dito, yung statement of teaching philosophy, it is a description of your personal approach to teaching and component of teaching dossier. But your statement should not simply describe your experience and initiative in teaching because according to Sconwitter and other scholars who contribute, your statement should provide a systematic and critical rationale that focuses on the important components defining effective teaching and learning in a particular discipline and or institutional context. So in other words, it is a personal and reflective type of paper which draws your experience as a teacher. So, baliwala yung philosophies, yung teaching philosophies na na-develop mo, kung hindi mo naman siya ma-apply and also may implement sa teaching practice mo as a teacher. So next is the purpose of teaching, a statement of teaching philosophy. So next slide po. So, a statement of teaching philosophy can do several things for you. First, it can clarify what you believe good teaching to be, explain what you hope to achieve in teaching. Third is contextualize your teaching strategies and other evidence of teaching effectiveness. And lastly, it can provide an opportunity for reflection and the development of your own teaching. So, a statement of teaching philosophy can be successfully written in various ways. And one way in which statement of teaching philosophy vary is in whether or not they include description of an instructor's specific teaching strategies. So, next po. Yan. So, yung mga sa pag-develop or pag-compose ng statement of teaching philosophies, karaniwan yung mga author, dinidescribe din nila doon yung mga activities na pinagawa nila or yung mga assignments na binigay nila sa mga estudyante nila. Para hindi lang siya, yung reason na hindi lang siya yung binigay for the purpose of for grades, but for the purpose para mas maintindihan at maunawaan ng mga students nila yung lesson na nilesson nila nung araw na yon. And also, they may also include dun yung yung instructor teaching beliefs. And some instructors or authors of the statement of teaching philosophies, pinagsasama nila yung teaching strategies and also teaching philosophy. Pero yung ibang instructors naman, pinaghiwalay nila sa magkaibang papel o magkaibang page yung teaching philosophy and also yung teaching strategies. So, sino yung may idea kung ano yung pagkakaiba ng teaching philosophy and teaching strategies? Sino po? Pwede niyong i-comment yung sagot niyo. So, wala. So, yung pagkakaiba ng teaching philosophy sa teaching strategies, yung teaching philosophy, it is a written description of your values, goals, and beliefs regarding for both teaching and learning. While yung strategies naman, ito yung mga methods, techniques ng teacher na ginagamit niya para ma-impart niya yung knowledge in an effective manner. So yung teaching philosophy, it's about the beliefs, and while yung teaching strategies, yun naman about naman siya sa methods and techniques. So here is the components in developing a statement of teaching philosophies. So first is a brief description of your teaching context. It includes elements of your field that most shape your approach to teaching. And pwede mo din dito ilagay yung description of your students, like yung grade level, section, classroom, class size, or kung yung tinuturuan mo ba may special needs, yon, pwede mong ilagay yun doon. And also, pwede mong ilagay din doon yung mga important learning goals na kailangan i-achieve ng students mo, and also the challenges that you encounter and also the students. So next component po, your definition of good teaching. So your balik po. So second component, your definition of good teaching and explanation of why do you develop that definition, or kung na-adapt mo man siya, galing siya sa mentor mo or sa ibang philosopher, pwede mo rin ilagay kung saan mo siya na-adapt or kung kanino mo siya na-adapt. So third is a discussion of your teaching methods. You will add in your paper, how do you implement your definition of good teaching? So, kailangan ma-incorporate mo sa teaching practice mo yung definition mo ng good teaching. Hindi lang siya basta definition, you should apply that definition. And fourth component is a discussion of your evaluation and assessment methods and description of how they support your definition of good teaching. And last component is a description of your teaching goals. Kung anong content, skills, or values yung dapat matutunan ng students mo bago sila lumabas ng classroom, and also ano yung dapat bitbitin nila paglabas nila ng classroom. And also you may add your goals for improving your own teaching. So every day naman every day ng pagtuturo mo, may naiisip ka na mga ways kung paano mo mai-improve yung teaching style na meron ka. So here is the format of developing a statement of teaching philosophy. Next slide po. So, a concise as possible 2 to 5 pages, single space is common as minimum length. And it includes generous white space between paragraphs to each, but there is no set length for the statement. So kahit gaano kahaba or gaano kadami yung mga paragraphs, okay lang. As much as possible, 2 to 5 pages lang siya. So the document may be longer kasi in-include mo pa yung mga information on specific teaching strategies na meron ka or ginawa mo sa teaching practices mo. So lastly, it is written in a personal, relatively informal tone, usually in the first person point of view. So sinabi ko nga kanina, parang it's somehow similar to reflection paper. So pag sinabi reflection paper, nasa first person point of view siya kasi sinishare mo yung experience, yung thoughts and feelings base dun sa topic na binigay sa'yo. And also, you need to apply what you learn according to dun din sa topic na binigay. So next is, so there are steps of completing your statement of teaching philosophy. Next slide po. Yan, next po. So the first step is identify your teaching context. So kailangan you need to consider the following elements that may shape your teaching. First is the content. Ano yung ituturo mo sa mga students mo? Second is method. Paano ka magtuturo sa mga students mo? And third, methods, isa pa sa method is ano-ano yung mga common teaching approaches or strategies na ginamit mo sa discipline mong yon. And third is learners, kanino ka magtuturo. So, pwede mo nga include yung description of your students, hindi lang basta yung students mo. Syempre, merong specific description of your students kasi may mga school for for normal, yung wala silang disabilities. Yung iba naman, merong special school for them, di ba? So, magkaiba yung strategies and approach na ginagawa doon. So, next is context. Kailan ka magtuturo? Next is instructor. Ano yung role mo as their instructor or teacher? And lastly, ideals. What guides your teaching and why do you teach? Bakit ka magtuturo? So, Next step po is step 2 po. Yan. So sa step 2, you need to articulate your teaching beliefs. Write some notes in response to one or more of the following questions. So yung mababanggitin kong question makakatulong sa inyo para i-articulate yung teaching beliefs nyo. Like, for example, what do I consider unique about myself as a teacher? Or what is my greatest challenge when it comes to teaching? Or what is challenging about teaching in my discipline? Or what I am a student and what conditions are necessary for me to really learn? And also, who is my model of a really effective teacher and what made them a good teacher? And lastly, what is challenging about learning in my discipline? So, in this, in developing your statement of teaching philosophy, hindi ka lang basta teacher. Isa ka ring student kasi yung mga teachers naman is dumaan sila sa pagka-estudyante. So, alam nila kung ano yung mga various ways or strategies na makakatulong talaga sila para maintindihan yung lesson. Nakuha po ba? Thumbs up naman po, gets pa yung mga sinasabi ko. Yan, thank you. So, dito na tayo sa... So, third step is write a teaching claim. Using your notes in response to one of the guiding questions, formulate a claim about your teaching approach or beliefs. Pwede nyo to gamitin, itong mga phrases na sasabihin ko ulit is pwede nyo gamitin para maging, para sa introduction nyo. Like, I believe the role of university instructor to be blank. My goal as an instructor of graduate student is to, or I can identify 3 main challenges for undergraduate students in my field as blank, or use metaphor if appropriate. Like, I see my role as that of a guide blank. So for next step po. So for the next step is demonstrate how this teaching claim is implemented in your teaching. What are some teaching strategies, activities that you've used an instructor or experience as a student that support that kind of learning or teaching described in your teaching claim? So yung sinabi ko nga kanina is yung teaching claim mo, hindi lang siya basta definition. Kailangan ma-implement mo siya sa teaching practice mo. And also, pwede mong ilagay yung shoes mo as a student. Kasi mas malalaman mo kung naiintindihan ba nung mga estudyante mo, kung naunawaan ba talaga nila yung binigay mong lesson or yung in-impart mong knowledge sa kanila. So, for the next step po. So, the fifth step is evidence of effectiveness. So, how do you know this teaching method supports the kind of learning or teaching described in your teaching claim? This evidence can be anecdotal, derived from evaluation of your teaching, or located in your supporting materials. So, yung evidence mo, yung mga examples mo can add as your evidence para ma-prove mo na itong teaching philosophy mo or teaching strategy mo is effective. And aware naman kayo 'di ba na sa may mga observers. So yung mga observers, meron silang pang checklist kung saan ginegradean nila yung performance ng teacher. And yung yung evaluation nila dun sa teacher, pwede yun magamit ng teacher as his or her evidence sa kanyang teaching claim. Next step po. So next step is repeat. Try to identify at least 3 or 4 core teaching beliefs and write corresponding teaching statements and identify relevant teaching methods and evidence. So the 7th step po. So the seventh step is reflect and connect. And you may use this following question um, to assess your statement of teaching philosophy, like how are how are these ideas connected, what kind of instructor do they describe. This connection can help you come up with the thesis about who you are as an instructor that can form the introduction of your statement and provide an overall narrative and structure for your dossier. And the next step is review. So you may also use this following questions, like do this statement accurately capture who you are or want to be as an instructor? Or is anything missing? Are these teaching claims appropriate to the types of teaching context where you will be teaching? So yung mga guiding questions na yun, makakatulong sa inyo para mag-compose ng statement of teaching philosophy. And lastly, the last step is have someone else read the statement. So this might be your colleague or mentor in your field, or other teachers from other discipline or department. So let's move on to the next topic. So thumbs up naman po kung may naiintindihan or may tanong. Meron po ba? Okay, thank you. Salamat, Dayan. Salamat. And so my last topic is avoiding common pitfalls. So there are things that we should avoid in developing or composing our statement of teaching philosophy. So first thing that we should avoid, next slide po. Yan. So the first thing that we should avoid is being too general. So make sure your statement experience and circumstances of the author. So okay lang naman na i-describe nyo yung mga teaching beliefs and also yung mga strategies that you've used in your teaching practice, pero make sure na reflective type of paper yung gagawin nyo. So next one is a statement that is not reflective. So don't just simply list teaching techniques or experience. You should also describe how these techniques or experience have contributed to the author's or teacher's beliefs about what constitute effective teaching. So third thing that we should avoid is a statement that dwells too much on negative experiences or circumstances. So kasi nga hindi natin maiiwasan maglagay ng mga negative experience nga it's all about our teaching experience, but make sure na mag-add ka pa rin something positive, kasi ibig sabihin kung lahat ng diniscuss mo dun sa paper mo is negative, ibig sabihin nun walang development, walang progress. Ibig sabihin yung claim mo na good teaching is not valid. So hindi pala siya good teaching. So next one is too cliche. So always establish how that approach has been integrated into the author's teaching and statement that expresses a belief in a popular contemporary approach to teaching. And next is too oblique. A statement that references a philosophy or belief but never describes it outright. So okay lang naman if mag-add ka ng mga philosophies or philosophers na nakatulong sa yung teaching claim, but make sure na hindi siya magiging sapaw dun sa sinulat mo. Next is too few examples. So, a statement that does not include information about how the author knows his or her teaching to be effective, you may provide examples to your paper, because yung examples mo is magsiserve yun as your evidence dun sa claim mo. So, yung examples mo may be from your students, or yung evaluation from your mentor or sa mga head ng department nyo. Yun yung pwedeng makatulong sa'yo para ma-justify i-justify mo yung claim mo na which is yung definition mo ng good teaching. And lastly, that you need to avoid is too much jargon, because a statement that it includes too much jargon, especially relating to pedagogical or disciplinary research, may be less accessible to your readers. So, be mindful na hindi lahat ng readers mo ay teachers. Meron din dyan, katulad natin, student teachers. So, hindi naman talaga tayo parang aware pa dun sa mga words na yun. So, if ever na maglalagay ka ng mga jargons, pwede mong ilagay doon sa pinaka baba ng paper mo yung definition, o kaya yung definition ay pwede mo rin siya ilagay sa at the end of your paper. So next po. So may tanong po. So we will proceed na po sa next presenter of philosophy of education, which is si Abigail Reyes. Yan po. Thank you.
Yan. Thank you, Jody. Good day, everyone. I am Abigail Reyes from BED 21B. Naririnig ba ako? Clear ba yung audio ko? Please heart react para malaman ko naman. Can you give me a heart react kung clear ba yung audio ko? Yan. Thank you. So today I'll be discussing about the philosophy of education. So this will be an introduction to a series of subtopics. So maraming subtopic yung philosophy of education. So first, we'll be defining the philosophy of education. So when we say philosophy, it's love, philo, Sophie, wisdom, love, wisdom of education. So this is one of the most important things to remember and understand as future educators, because many of our practices, teaching practices to be specific, and learning strategies are all related to this. So the philosopher of educations are interested in three things. So ano nga ba yung tatlong yon? Yan. So, yan. So first we have analyzing, then clarifying concepts, and question to central education. So yung tatlong ito ay related sa the point of view of learning and teaching. So the philosophy of education, it also addresses some questions concerning the natures, the aims, and the problems of education. So which is why before, yung mga professional philosophers, bago tayo magkaroon ng mga professional philosophers, the philosopher and the educators argued to questions familiar to contemporary philosopher of educations, such as, yan, ito yung mga pinagdebatihan nila. So, what should be the aims or the purpose of education? Who should be educated? Should education differ according to natural interests and abilities? And what role should the state play in education? So these questions are up until now being asked. So bakit nga ba tayo nagtatanong ng mga katanungan na hindi nawawala, di ba? Why do we always keep on asking them? We always seek for an answer sa mga unanswerable na questions, di ba? We can stay still or be at peace until we have the answer that we want to hear. So one answer to this sensible objection is that every society must answer them. Not only for once and for all the time, but as well and consciously as it can for the benefit of the people and the future of the earth. So parang dito, yung paano ba? In every age, the questions have elicited better and worse responses, and thoughtful people continue to examine the old responses. So parang yung mga naging una ng sagot na nalikom noon, syempre nag-iiba siya as times goes by. Kaya nagiging mas malawak na yung range ng knowledge natin kesa sa dati compare sa ngayon. So, nag-iiba sa paglipas ng panahon kasi mas nagiging malawak na yung range ng knowledge natin then from the answer mas nagiging malawak na yung answer natin. Then from the answer before we compare them to the current responses na kung saan mas nakakabuo tayo ng mga deeper at malaman na sagot. So the questions of philosophy of educations are of course related to educations, and the philosopher are mostly employed in schools and Department of Educations. So the philosophy of education has 7 major philosophies. So the first philosophy will be essentialism, which would be discussed by John Michael.
Ayan, so thank you, Abigail, for that introduction. No? First, I will introduce myself. I am John Michael po from BEd 2-1D. And before we start, no, I just want to say thank you for actively listening and actively participating sa mga questions namin. And ayun, sana hanggang later part ng webinar, mag-participate pa rin kayo. So, before we start, gusto ko muna magtanong, raise niyo yung hand niyo kung na-experience niyo to yung sasabihin ko. Narinig niyo na ba to or minsan baka sinabi niyo din na, uy be, okay lang yan. Wag niyo nang aralin, wag masyadong focus din sa subject na yan kasi hindi naman yan masyadong hindi naman masyadong kailangan yan sa real world, no. Yung real world sa trabaho, hindi naman kailangan yun, no. So raise hand niyo yung mag-raise hand kayo kung narinig niyo yung ganong word or yung ganong phrase, no? Or minsan kayo nagsasabi. So, mukha namang wala. No? Ayun! Si Paz. Sorry, hindi ko nakita. Ayun. So, mukhang kakaunti lang, no? Ang dami pala. Ayan, ang dami students, no? Ako, sa akin, wait lang. Sorry, ang dami ko nang pipindot. Ayan, ako okay lang sa akin kung kapag tinawag ko kayo, okay lang kung hindi nyo gusto mag-share, no? So, ayun, tawag tayo ng isa lang kasi baka masyadong kumain ng oras eh. Share naman kayo kung saan nyo ba siya narinig or saan nyo siya na-encounter. Si Aubrey. Aubrey, saan mo siya narinig?
Ay, hello.
Hello.
Sa mga classmate ko, kasi parang pag-exams, parang sinasabi na hindi naman yan major, parang bakit may naaral, parang ganun.
Ayun, thank you for sharing, Aubrey, no. And isa last na lang kasi ang ganda ng nila. Si Paz, tawagin natin si Paz, no. Share ka naman, Paz. Ayan.
Kapag po sa exams din po nung junior high kami, kapag nag-e-exam, hindi pag may minor subjects, sabihin daw na wag mo na daw seryosohin kasi hindi naman daw importante, mataas naman magbigay si ma'am. So kahit hindi priority yung periodical test, okay na rin yan. Ganun.
Yun, di ba? Actually, kasi ako, ang share ko naman, ako naman Jessica, konti lang naman to, maiki lang. Ako kasi, na-experience, thank you pala for sharing, Paz, no? Ako kasi, experience ko is from chemistry, no? Nung last subject, last kasi kami for general academics, so naka-encounter kami ng chemistry. And sabi ko, parang hindi naman to in line sa gusto kong course. Kasi gusto ko din elementary education ko, parang tuturo ba to ng chemistry sa Siguro ngayon, nagulat din ako, syempre magtuturo tayo ng science. And ayun, parang hindi ako masyado interested. And lagi ko siyang naririnig as in sa mga classmate ko. And ayun, medyo na-influence din ako ng slight lang, ganon, slight. Na-influence ako kasi sabi nila hindi naman daw kailangan. So, hindi ako masyado nagre-review kapag exam, ganon. So, ayun lang. Konting sharing. Thank you for sharing, Thank you for sharing. And thank you for participating. So, pasok na tayo sa topic. So, essentialism. So, kunin natin yung pinaka-root word niya, no? So, essence. Ang meaning ng essence is, it denotes signal which makes a being a being. So, ayan. Before tayo mag-dig deep down dun sa topic na yun, syempre, kikilalanin mo natin, sino nga ba yung behind nito? Sino nasa likod nitong essentialism? So, next. Next, tayo, PowerPoint. Wait lang. Ayan. Ayun. Ito, nilagay ko lang to sa ito lang nilagay ko sa PowerPoint para at least hindi overload yung information. Ito yung pinaka-importante, no? So, most important na kailangan yung matandaan kay William Chandler Bagley, no? Magkukwento ako ng about sa background history niya, pero ito lang yung nasa PowerPoint yung most important. ito, chika na natin. So ito yung history niya. Si William Chandler Bagley was born on Detroit, Michigan. No? Sa mga hindi nakakaalam kung saan yon, it is located somewhere in the USA, United States of America. No? And si William Chandler ay graduate ng Michigan Agricultural College noong 1895. So siguro yung iba sa inyo, ewan ko kung nagtaka din sa inyo, no? Agricultural College, graduate siya ng Agricultural College, tapos naging father of essentialism. Wait lang, ganito. 'Di ba after niya, wait lang, ituloy natin yung story kasi 'di ba, doon yung malalaman sa later part ng history niya kung paano niya na-invento yung essentialism. So ito 'di ba nakagraduate na siya ng sa Agricultural College. After niya makagraduate, since wala siyang land and money to since wala siyang land and money to begin sa gusto niya, nag-fail siya. And ang ginawa niya is naghanap siya ng ibang trabaho, naghanap. However, ang nangyari is parang hindi naging successful yung paghahanap niyang trabaho. And in the later part, doon na siya pumasok sa napadpad siya sa teaching profession, no. Napunta siya sa Michigan School. And nagturo siya doon ng 2 years. Wait lang. Let's see, baka merong unrelated pala, unrelated. Akala ko related sa mga nag-chat. So sorry, balik tayo. So si William Chandler Bagley, nagturo siya ng 2 years sa Michigan, no? So doon siya napadpad sa teaching profession. So, 'di ba nakagraduate siya ng Agricultural College pero natuturo siya. Parang habang nagtuturo siya, bigla siya nakaranas na parang, kailangan ko ata ng improvement, no? Kailangan ko ng improvement. So, ang ginawa ni William Chandler is nag-aral siya ng psychology. So, na-obtain niya yung master's degree niya in 1995. No? Kuha niya yung master's degree niya ng psychology in 1898, sorry. So ayun, so after noon na makakuha niya, and soon after na-found niya yung essentialism. So after niya na-found yung essentialism, doon na siya nag-retired. So tapos nung nag-retired na siya, namatay siya. Ay siguro mga later part no, namatay siya July 1, 1946 siya namatay. So nakasulat naman din sa PowerPoint kung kailan siya na born and kailan siya namatay, no. Buhay siya ng 1874 and namatay siya ng 1946. So, ayun. Wait lang. I just want to clear this one kasi itong essentialism, madaming philosophers ang parang nagkaroon ng perspective dito sa essentialism. Pero ito si William Chandler Bagley, siya yung most commonly known na father of essentialism. So, ayun lang, clear ko lang na siya yung common, kaya siya yung i-discuss natin. Siya yung common known. So, yun lang. Next slide tayo. Next slide. Wala na pa. Ayun, sorry. Ayan. So, magdidig na talaga tayo dun sa word na essentialism. So, ayan na. Since nalaman na natin kung sino yung behind this, ayan na. Ito na tayo. So, essentialism. Teachers teach for learners to acquire basic knowledge, skills, and value. So, ano ba yung mga basic knowledge natin? Ano ba yung basic knowledge na dapat ituro ni teacher? So, more likely, ito yung mga truths and principles. So, paano ba natin ma-acquire si truths and principles? So, syempre mag-aaral tayo ng iba't ibang subjects. Ituturo siya ni teacher, yung mga math, natural science, history, foreign language, and literature. So, with that, doon mo malalaman yung facts and principles, different principles. Doon mo ma-acquire yung basic knowledge mo. And next is yung basic skills. Ano ba yung mga basic skills na dapat ituro ni teacher? Ito yung mga reading, writing, calculating, listening, and speaking. Ito yung dapat ituro ni teacher, no? Mga basic, yan yung mga basic skills. And next is basic values. Ito din daw dapat, sabi ni essentialism, ito din daw dapat yung ituro ni teacher. Basic values. Ano ba yung mga basic values natin? Love, truth, right action, peace, and non-violence. And syempre madami pa, no? Pero yun lang muna yung sasabihin natin. So ayun lang. Next bullet tayo. The essentialist goal of education is to transmit and maintain the necessary fundamentals of human culture. So ano ba yung mga fundamentals of human cultures? Ito yung ideas and behaviors. So ito si teacher, ang gagawin niya is tuturuan ni teacher si younger generation ng mga different kinds of ideas and behavior. Tapos ito naman si younger generation kapag lumaki na siya, and ayun, soon pwede din siya maging teacher, ay ganun din yung gagawin niya sa mga younger generation. Tuturo din niya yung ideas and behavior. So magsi-circulate lang, no? Iikot-ikot lang yung process. So ito yung sinasabi ni essentialism. So ito yung kailangan So ito yung kailangan ituro. So ito yung sa tingin namin kailangan, ito yung kailangan ituro. Kaya ituturo nila. So ayun. So sana naging clear, no? Next, next PowerPoint. So ayan. As effective professional educators, teachers should first is adhere to a well-defined curriculum of basic skills and subject. Nasabi ko naman kanina yung basic skills and subjects, no? Yung basic skills, reading, writing, and yung basic subjects, ito yung mga math, yung mga basic subjects natin, yung science, history, ganon. Sorry. Ayun, ano ba yung well-defined curriculum? Sorry, nagka-problema. Ayun. Ano ba yung well-defined curriculum natin? Ito yung, dito sinasabi yung well-defined is, ito yung, paano ba natin masasabi na well-defined yung curriculum? Paano ba natin masasabi? Sorry kasi nagkakaroon ng technical problem. Ayun, first is, bubulan. Ayan, sorry. Ayan na. Medyo ayos na. Naglalag ako, sorry. Ayan na. Ayan, so paano ba natin masasabi yung well-defined na curriculum? So it must be mayroon siyang clear objectives, outcomes, assessments, activities, step-by-step enhancement of knowledge. So ayun, dapat daw ganito yung curriculum nyo para ma-categorize siya as a well-defined curriculum. So second, punta na tayo sa second. Sorry kanina medyo naglalag kasi, kaya nagka-problem lang. So okay, punta na tayo sa second. Inculcate a core-based na traditional values of patriotism, hard work, effort, punctuality, respect for authority, and civility. So actually, nung dito sa dun sa module na pinagkuhanan ko ng information na sinend, may nakalagay dyan na Western and American. So tinanggal ko lang kasi baka medyo ma-confuse tayo. Basta i-define na lang natin siya as widely accepted. So ito yung widely accepted na values, traditional values, which is kailangan i-embodied natin as a teacher para maging effective tayo kay learner. So kailangan si teacher magiging role model ng patriotism, hard work, effort, punctuality, respect for authority, and civility. So kailangan dapat acquired ni teacher itong mga values na yan, traditional values. So para magaya ni students, no? And third is manage classroom efficiently and effectively as peers of discipline and order. So paano ba natin mamamanage yung classroom? Siguro nagbibigay ako ng tatlo, no? Mamamanage natin yung classroom by understanding our students, no? Siyempre yung mga students natin, we have siguro abundant, kung sabihin natin, madaming reasons, no? Madaming reasons ang pwedeng i-rason ni students. So dapat tayo as a teacher, siguro ako, no, as a future teachers tayo, mga nasa webinar, as a future teachers, we should learn how to understand our students, no. And nakikita naman natin sa school natin, sa university natin ngayon is nagbigay sila ng academic ease, no. So it's a sign, no, na they understand their students. So, next, no, paano pa natin ma-manage yung classroom? bakit pala classroom tapos nag-university ako? Sorry. Naging general. Lumaki yung sakop natin, no? Naging classroom tapos naging university. Sorry. Lumawak ng sobra, no? Hindi ko na ano yun. Hindi ko napansin yun. So ayun, second natin, paano natin ma-manage yung classroom effectively? Set effective limits, no? Paano ba yung limits? So idugtong ko na lang din to. Keep to the schedule you've set, no? Since you've set the effective limits, so kailangan siguro ito si teacher magbibigay siya ng ganitong deadline. So make sure na kapag nagbigay ka ng ganitong deadline is kayang i-attain ni student ito. Kaya niyang gawin ito sa tinakdang oras, no? Tinakdang panahon. So doon din papasok si schedule, keep to the schedule you've set. So kapag si teacher naman na nag-set ng ganitong deadline, 'di ba? Alam niya naman na kaya ni students na gawin ito. So dapat consider pala ni teacher 'yon na dapat alam niya yung kakayanan ni students. So once na you know ulit na alam niyo na yung kakayanan ni students, then you set the deadline and soon kailangan ni teacher mag-stick doon sa sinabi niyang deadline kasi it wouldn't be fair, no, sa mga nag-effort and mga nag-comply within the deadline. So ayun, it's the three points na how to manage classroom efficiently. So ayun lang. Fourth one is wait lang, just add dun sa manage classroom, dun sa sinabi ko na set effective limits. So we have different reasons naman siguro. So, yung iba magiging valid, yung iba hindi. So depende ito sa teacher. So pasok tayo sa fourth. Fourth is promote students in basis of academic achievement and not social promotion. So ako, while I'm discussing siguro patapos naman din ako. Pwede kayong siguro mag-raise ng hand or mag-share, no, ng mga experiences nyo. Mas gusto ko pa nga yan. Siguro kahit nagsasalita ako dito, pwede kayong mag-raise ng hand kung gusto nyo mag-share, no. Hindi ko naman mamasamain yun kung gusto nyo mag-share kasi mas gusto ko pa nga yan kasi mas maganda yung lesson natin is makakapulot kayo ng experience nyo sa life and that is a effective learning for the students, no. So ayun. Raise ka lang kayo ng hand kapag siguro may nakapulot, ay ganito, na-experience ko to, na-experience ko to. Taas lang kayo ng kamay and ayun, bigyan kita ng time for sharing. So ayan, pasok na tayo sa fourth is promote students on the basis of academic achievement and not social promotion. So ganito sabi kasi dito sa essentialism, i-promote not related again. Ayun, so sabi ni essentialism na need mo daw i-promote students na pinagbabasihan mo yung academic achievement niya. So kapag si student is from grade 3, 'di ba? Grade 3 tapos pupunta na siya sa grade 4 is kailangan yung academic achievement niya is clearly na sinasabi na pwede siyang pumunta ng grade 4, no? Kapag malinaw naman sa grade niya na pasado lahat niya and malinaw naman sa teachers 'yon na ganito na pwede siya, may kakayanan siya mag-proceed sa grade 4, go. However, sabi ni essentialism, wag mo daw i-promote si student nang dahil lang sa social promotion. So, ano ba yung social promotion? Ito yung kind ng pagpo-promote ng student sa grade level, kunyari grade 3 siya, tapos i-promote mo siya sa grade 4 nang dahil lang sa, kunyari, more likely sa peers, no? For example na natin sa peers, si student, for example lang to si students, i-promote natin siya sa grade 4 kasi yung kaibigan niya, yung mga kaibigan niya kasi, kunyari nag-meeting, ganito na lang, kunyari nag-meeting and sabi, sir, kailangan may promote yung student na yan kasi yung mga kaibigan niya is aangat, magpupunta ng grade 4. So, kapag hindi natin siya promote sa grade 4, kahit bagsak-bagsak yung grade niya, baka pag nag-remain siya sa grade level na yan, baka mawala na siya ng gana. Kasi wala na yung mga peers niya Baka hindi na siya mag-aral, baka magpariwara na, mas lalo siya magpariwara. So, ang tawag doon is social promotion. So, ipopromote mo siya dahil nandun yung mga peers niya, yung mga kaibigan niya, ayun. So, hindi mo ginawang basihan yung academic achievement niya para i-promote, no? More likely sa social, no? Social na kaibigan niya. Dahil yun, promote mo siya dahil doon. So that is called social promotion. So sabi ni essentialism, ulitin ko, i-promote mo siya dahil sa academic achievements niya, hindi dahil lang sa mga kaibigan niya. So I think that's all. Siguro wala mag-share na experience. Wala naman siguro, no? Wala. Okay. Let's proceed. Proceed na po tayo sa next second major philosophies of education, which will be presented by Kiana Javier. So giving you the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, John Michael, for the introduction. So the second philosophy of education would be progressivism. So before that, good afternoon to everyone. I am Kiana Javier, and I'm sorry that I'm unable to open my camera because my internet connection is very unstable as of the moment. So, okay. Progressivism. Teachers teach to develop learners into becoming an intelligent citizen of a democratic country. So progressivism states that students learn by experience and emphasizes teaching them to be good citizens and learners. The idea that education comes from the experience of the child. So main focus ng progressivism ay matututo ang isang bata kung na-experience niya ang isang bagay. Mas deep yung learning niya kapag hands-on na nagagawa niya yung isang bagay. So, children or learners are the focus of a progressive classroom. So, sa isang classroom, dapat hindi ang teacher or ang curriculum or yung focus, kundi nasa children, nasa learner. It is teaching the child to be a good citizen and not just good learners. So, ang progressivism, hindi lang siya nakafocus sa facts and figures, ideas and concepts na ituturo natin sa mga bata. Pagkos nakafocus din siya sa mga values at dapat mayroong integration kung paano sila magiging isang good citizen. Like for example, tuturuan natin yung mga learners natin about human rights, yung importance ng voting, which is relevant ngayon, at pumili tayo ng mga literature or mga materials na nagtuturo sa kanila ng values like honesty and justice. So, school is the miniature democratic society in which students could learn and practice the skills and tools necessary for democratic country. So, sa perspective ng isang bata, ang school yung gagawin natin panghalili sa society para at doon natin, and as a teacher, yun yung role para yung role is to teach them the skills and the tools na kailangan nila para sa pamumuhay sa isang democratic country. At ang pinaka-focus talaga ng progressivism ay learn by doing. Next slide. So, William Hurd Kilpatrick, he made progressivism an integral part of a teacher's progress from pre-service to practice and in restructuring Dewey's problem solving into the project method. So, before Kilpatrick, si John Dewey muna ang nag-utilize ng progressivism. So, the progressivism was developed around 19th century. So, na-develop to ni John Dewey dahil revolutionize niya ang American system of education, which is the recitation system. So, yung system na yon, kung ano yung nakalagay sa book, i-memorize yon ng mga bata and then test. So, si John Dewey, naniniwala siya na hindi yun effective at hindi ganon ka-deep yung learning ng isang bata. At kasi, naniniwala si John Dewey na mas matututong isang bata if na-experience niya kung anong natutunan nila. So, as a colleague ni Dewey, si Kilpatrick ay mas dinevelop niya pa ang progressivism at he made progressivism an important element in teachers' development. Next slide, Abby. Okay. Kilpatrick followed 3 guiding principles. 1, genuine education involves problem solving. So, kaya nga na sinabi ko kanina, mas natututo ang isang bata if na-experience na yung isang bagay. So, through problem solving, mas mai-imply nito yung statement na learn by doing. At alam natin na mas matututo yung isang bata kapag nararanasan niya at syempre, andun din yung application kung ano yung natutunan niya. So, second is learning is enriched as students collaboratively research and share information to formulate the test and formulate and test their hypothesis. So, in this learning, dapat andun din yung scientific inquiry at sa pamamagitan nito, mas mai-enhance yung social skills ng mga bata kasi they are forced or they are required na makipag-interact sa kapwa nila learners para masagot yung curiosity nila or yung mga tanong nila. Third one is teachers can guide students' learning without dominating it. As I said kanina, ang focus ng progressivism, ang focus sa isang classroom ay ang learners, hindi ang teacher. So, ang teacher ay magsisilbi lang na facilitator at ang mga learners talaga ang focus. Next slide. Okay. Kilpatrick described 4 types of projects. 1, implementing a creative idea or plan. So, dapat as a teacher, dapat meron tayong creative idea or plan. So, since we are in BEd, so mga bata yung tuturuan natin. Kaya, for them na mag-engage sa discussion, dapat yung activities natin is creative at nagkikater sa kung ano talaga yung interest nila. Second, enjoying an aesthetic experience. If andoon yung creative plan natin, mas andun din yung fun experience ng mga bata. So dapat we all know that dapat ma-impose natin sa kanila na learning is fun at dapat ipakita natin yan sa kanila. Third, solving an intellectual problem. So dapat yung mga problem ay mag-cater sa curiosity ng mga bata. So dapat andoon yung dapat mas maging curious pa yung mga bata para ma-inspire sila na mag-seek pa ng mga answers at yon. So last one is learning a new skill or area of knowledge. So dapat all in all, in conclusion, dapat may matutunan silang bagong knowledge or bagong idea na magagamit nila in the future. So yon. So that's the end of progressivism. So the next presenter will be Jamie.
Thank you, Kiana. I am Drew Jamie O. Ortega from BEED 21B, and I will be discussing the third major philosophy of education, which is perennialism. In perennialism, teachers teach to develop students' rational and moral powers, to stimulate students' intellects. Teachers in their pre-service preparation need to study the liberal arts and sciences and have experience in reading and discussing the great books. Sa perennialism, nakafocus din siya sa finding relevance and meaning ng idea na nag-exist before sa mga ideas na nag-exist today. Kasi from the root word of the perennialism, which is perennial, which means pangmatagalan, kaya yung focus ng perennialism is to find the relevance and meaning of ideas that existed before and today. And perennialist educators aim to teach students how to think rationally and develop minds that can think critically. Okay, next slide po. So, for primary grade, reading, writing, and computation are considered as fundamental skills or just like what John Michael Poe said a while ago, it is the basic skills or knowledge that the primary grades should possess or have. Or no, because reading requires understanding and interpretation in order to be knowledgeable about what he or she have read. Same goes with writing and computation. Hindi ka makakapagsulat or hindi mo maintindihan yung binasa mo and hindi ka makakapag-compute kapag hindi mo naintindihan or na-interpret kung ano ba yung naituro sa'yo. Kaya yung itong understanding and interpretation is ito yung mga skills na nagre-require or na tumutulong sa mga bata para or ito yung stepping stone nila para maging mga rational and critical thinkers sila or meron silang capabilities na makapag-isip or think outside of the box. So next slide po. Sa secondary grade naman, meron tayong human concerns which are history, literature, and philosophy. These are considered as human concerns because these are the ways on how to know or determine human concerns in order to help the students think rationally and critically. Sa second graders kasi mas mataas na yung cognitive skills nila or cognitive levels nila kaya parang mas malalim na yung mga pinanggagalingan ng mga ideas nila and mas malawak na yung kakayahan nila na mag-isip. So, history, literature, and philosophy also helps the learners to develop their intellectual curiosity, appreciation of the world cultures and creativity, and even decision-making, analytical thinking, and oral communication, which can also help in exercising the learner's capabilities to think rationally and critically. Lahat ng nandito sa perennialism, nakafocus siya sa pagiging rational and critical thinkers ng mga learners. Okay, before we proceed with the fourth major philosophy, let me give you a little comparison between essentialism, progressivism, and perennialism. Sa essentialism kasi, nakafocus siya or tinutulungan yung mga or ginagawa yung mga bata using basic knowledge, skills, and values. Sa progressivism naman, nagpo-produce tayo ng mga bata or mga educators na maging intelligent citizen ng isang democratic country. And lastly, sa perennialism, tinutulungan natin or nagpo-produce tayo ng mga learners or mga bata na kayang mag-isip rationally and critically or can think outside of the box. Yun po. For the fourth major philosophy of education, let me call Jamaica go. Thank you.
Yan, good afternoon po. Naririnig niyo po ba ako? Hindi po kasi makakapag-on cam kasi po hindi po ganun ka-stable yung internet ko kaya ayun, pasensya na. So, yung akin, philosophy of existentialism. Teachers teach to help students define their own essence. The existentialist teacher seeks to create an awareness in each student of ultimate responsibility for her or his own education and self-definition. The teachers encourage students to examine the institution, forces, and situation that limits freedom of choices. So yun, teachers teach to help the student define their own essence. The teacher's role is to help the student define their own essence by exposing them to various paths they may take in life and creating an environment in which they freely choose their own preferred way. So, in an existentialist curriculum, students are given a wide variety of options from which to choose. So, ang example ko dito is, wait lang po. So, ang example ko dito is ito. Ang ating mga magiging estudyante ay merong iba't ibang wait lang. Iba't ibang way ng pagkatuto. So, example, nagtuturo tayo ng mga alphabets, colors, and numbers. Merong mga bata na natututo sa panonood sa YouTube, pakikinig ng nursery rhymes, at syempre may bata na natututo sa mga nahahawakan at nakikita niya, katulad nito, flashcards, booklets, and sa pagtuturo naman ng colors, ito ginagamit ko sa pamangkin ko. Ito yung popsicle stick kasi dito mas madali niyang na lalaman na tuturo niya agad at yon. So tayo bilang teacher kailangan nating maging wait papatay ko na baka mawala ako bigla. Tapos yun nawala na balik. Tayo we as a teacher kailangan nating maging creative lagi sa pag-iisip ng mga activity na mabibigyan natin ng freedom to choose kung anong paraan ang gustong piliin ng ating estudyante. So, yon. Next slide. Shoot, kinakabahan ako. Ayan. The teachers encourage the student to examine the institution, forces, and situation that limits freedom of choices. In the essentialist classroom, subject matter takes second place to helping the student understand and appreciate themselves as a unique individuals who accept complete responsibility for their thoughts, feelings, and action. So tayo bilang guro, kailangan natin ipaintindi sa ating mga estudyante na lahat ng bata ay iba. Pwedeng si Teresa, yung magaling kumanta, si Ming magaling magsalita, magaling magboka. Pero si Marcia, gusto niya nandun lang siya sa may likod at nakikinig siya pero basta yon. Wala na ako siya. Tapos, ayun. So, next slide po. Existentialists would oppose the standard movement, especially its emphasis on standardized testing to measure academic success as an impediment to personal choice and freedom. Standardized instruction in every classroom diminish the creative uniqueness of each educational setting. So ito yung doon, ito yung example ko doon. Ganito kasi ng ate ko kagabi sa akin, yung pamangkin ko daw, mas nag-i-enjoy siya magsulat ng pangalan niya kapag gumagamit siya ng mga ganito. Kasi may pamangkin po ako na 4 years old. Hindi siya nag-i-enjoy magsulat kapag lapis yung gamit niya. Mas gusto niya magsulat kapag mga gamit niya markers, may mga kulay. Kasi tapos sabi ng teacher niya, okay lang daw yun kasi mas natututo yung bata sa ganung paraan. So sabi na yun yung na hindi mo pwede limatahan yung bata kung doon siya mas natututo. Hindi pwede na sa lapis, kung lapis yung tulad nito nga, dapat yun yung gagamitin niya lapis pero mas nag-i-enjoy siya sa paggamit ng markers kasi may nakikita siyang kulay. So sabi ng teacher niya, okay lang yun kasi mas natututo yung bata sa ganung paraan. So yun, sana may natutunan ganun. So, tapos, moving on to the next topic of philosophy of behaviorism. Mr. John Mark po, girl, time mo na. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, Jamaica. Thank you for your introduction. So again, hi everyone. I'm John Michael po from BEd 21D. And again, before we start, gusto ko lang ulit magtanong. Raise lang kayo ng hands nyo kung gusto yung mag-share experiences. Okay lang din kung hindi. May question ako. May nagawa na ba kayong mga bagay-bagay na hindi nyo alam masyado yung importance nito, pero ginagawa nyo siya? No? Raise lang kayo ng hand kung may alam kayo. Kapag yung may mga bagay kayo na ginagawa sa buhay nyo or mga ginagawa na inuutos sa inyo, na ginagawa nyo siya pero hindi nyo alam kung bakit. No? Hindi masyadong clear yung reason sa inyo kung bakit nyo siya ginagawa. Raise lang kayo ng hand. Wala bang mag-raise ng hand? Mukhang wala naman masyadong naka-experience noon. Wala naka-experience sa inyo ng ganon. May nagawa kayong bagay na hindi masyadong clear sa inyo yung definition kung bakit nyo siya ginagawa. Wala naman. Wala. Mukhang self-aware talaga sila. Self-aware, no? So ako na lang mag-share. Wala ba talaga? Wala. Wala nag-raise ng hand eh. Hindi ko din sure. Ayun. So ayan, sabi ni Marcus, hindi din na sure. Marcus, baka alam mo kung anong pangyayari 'yon. Hindi mo din ba sure talaga kung saan mo siya naaalala? Hindi mo naaalala yung event na 'yon. Wala. So, ayun, mukha namang lahat self-aware, no? Sana all self-aware. Ako kasi, minsan, si teacher, minsan, di ba, ako sa school, nangyari is, minsan, sabi ni teacher, kapag pumasok na siya sa loob ng classroom, dapat malinis na, no? Malinis na and well-arranged na yung upuan. So, para sa akin, ano ba yung importance no? Basta nagfa-follow lang ako ng rules, no? Siyempre, yung iba sabi, uy, para sa kalinisan yan. Pero ako, usually, hindi masyado clear sa akin yung definition. Hindi ko din masyado napapangang sa sarili ko yun eh, na dapat, ay, sorry, mali. Bakit kalinisan ang sinabi ko, no? Hala, grabe. Nagkakalat. Ayun. Wait. Sorry. Ayan. Wait lang. Sorry. Ayun pala, pagkapasok ko pala ng classroom, sorry, hindi pala siya kalinisan. Kung mali na example ko. Mali na example ko. Minsan pagkapasok ng classroom, si teacher, sinasabi niya sa amin na ibilog pala, sorry, mali pala, hindi pala kalinisan yon. Hindi pala kasi clear naman sa atin yung definition kung bakit kailangan pagkapasok ni teacher malinis na. No? Sa amin kasi pinapabilog yung upuan. Sabi niya, kailangan nakabilog na circle. Minsan walang groupings, no? Gusto lang niya talaga nakabilog. And we have an instance na nagko-follow lang tayo, no? Kasi kailangan. No? Kasi gusto ni teacher. So, kind of behavior na hindi masyado clear yung definition na hindi din natin natatanong kay teacher, no? Kahit minsan, 'di ba, walang groupings pero nakabilog. Bakit kaya, 'di ba? So, ayun, naitanong ko din sa sarili ko yun, pero hindi ko din alam yung sagot. O hindi yung kalinisan, sorry, biglaan lang din, no? Biglaan lang din yung example ko, naisip ko lang. So, ayun, next topic na tayo. So, behaviorism. Papasok na tayo sa behaviorism. Kunin natin ulit yung root word. Si behaviorism is, ang definition niya is a behavior or manner of behaving whether good or bad. Wait lang, back na natin. Back ulit. Ayan. Ay, okay na, sorry, ganito ulit. Ayan. Behaviorism, sabi daw, ang definition of behaviorism is, kunin natin yung root word again, so bumalik tayo sa PowerPoint. Kung natin yung root word, behavior, so ang definition of behavior is a manner of behaving whether or good or bad. So again, parang ginawa ko din kanina, before natin i-discuss kung ano nga ba si behaviorism is kikilalanin muna natin kung sino nga ba yung behind nito, nasa likod nitong behaviorism. So si John B. Watson. So again, sabi ko kanina, nilagay ko lang yung pinaka-importanting details about sa kanya. So sasabihin ko na lang yung ibang details about sa kanya. So as clearly stated sa PowerPoint, si John B. Watson na nabuhay noong 1878. Siya ay pinanganak sa South Carolina. Sa mga hindi alam kung saan yung South Carolina, part siya ng USA. Somewhere in the USA. So si John B. Watson is nag-grow up on farm, no? Siya ay lumaki sa farm. And ayun, nag-aaral siya pero parang reckless siya, parang pariwara and poor, mahirap. Tapos since parang masyado siyang pariwara sa buhay, then parang nagkaroon siya ng enlightenment, no? Yung word na enlightenment. Parang gusto niya, sabi niya, uy, kailangan ko ng self-promotion sa buhay. So si John B. Watson, nag-enter siya ng Furman University at the age of 16. So he received his master's degree after 5 years and went to the University of Chicago to pursue doctorate of psychology and philosophy. So ito, nag-take daw siya ng doctorate of psychology and philosophy. However, may nangyari pa dito. He dropped his philosophy and received his PhD in 1903. Ayun, so ano bang next natin? So ayan 'di ba nakakuha na siya ng PhD niya. So he studied biology, sociology, and behavior of animals. Then na-conclude niya dun sa pagsa-study niya na sabi niya mas complex no yung mga children and especially yung mga humans no kaysa sa mga animals, 'di ba? Kasi may mga researchers na mga nire-release na nire-relate yung mga behavior ng tao sa humans no sa behavior ng tao sa animals. So ayun, sabi 'di ba madaming experiment na gano'n no kasi ginagawa to ng animals, syempre baka ginagawa din to ng ng tao. So sabi ni John D. Watson hindi daw kasi mas complex daw sila, mas madaming mas magulo ba ganun. So ayun, konting chika sa life niya. Konting chika lang dito. Si John D. Watson, nagkaroon siya ng affair with a research associate, no? Habang research nagkaroon siya ng affair. And soon after that, na mahuli siya na mayroong affair with research associate, nagkaroon siya ng, ayun, nag-divorce sila ng wife niya and ayun, yung university na pinagtatrabahuhan niya ay sinabi sa kanya na mag-resign na siya. Tapos, ayun, nung wala na siya sa trabaho, he decided to enter advertising company. So, related pa rin doon sa course niya. Kasi, psychology, di ba? Or like advertising. Yun. Kasi, study of human behavior. Tapos, ayun, nung mamamatay na siya, he burned his unpublished personal papers and letters, no? Para hindi ko alam yung real reason noon kung bakit niya ginawa yan. So most commonly baka ayaw niya na ma-discover ng iba no or baka i-credit sa iba no kasi makita yung mga papers. No? Ewan ko, hindi clear masyado sa akin yung reason bakit niya binurn yung mga unpublished documents na ginawa niya. So ayun, nung 1925 doon niya na gawa yung behaviorism. So ito nasa PowerPoint kasi sabi dito sa second bullet, sabi niya also known as si John D. Watson, also known for the Little Albert experiment. Sa mga hindi nakakaalam nito, ito kasi correct me kung may nakakaalam dito, correct niyo ako kung hindi masyado well yung pagkakakwento ko dito about sa Little Albert experiment. Pagkakaalam ko kasi dito sa Little Albert experiment is ito 9-month-old yung baby. Tapos ano ba to? Dinescribe ni John D. Watson as a healthy, no? Healthy yung bata. Tapos in-involve niya sa experiment. Itong experiment na to, yung white rat, no, pinartneran nila ng mga iba't ibang sounds, no. Na kunyari pag nakita ni 9-month-old yung daga, parang nag-iingay sila, parang pinapartneran niya ng mga nakakatakot na tunog. Tapos later on si bata kapag nakakita na siya ng white rat na parang natutrauma ba, parang natatakot na din siya. And ganoon na din sa mga iba't ibang animals na nakikita niya, natatakot na din siya. Na doon nati-trigger 'yon. So ito yung common example ng parang more likely triggering ng parang stimuli, no? Common traditional type ng stimuli, no? So ayan. Next tayo. So dito talaga tayo mag-deep down sa behaviorism. So sabi dito si behaviorism daw, teachers, basahin ko muna yun sa PowerPoint. Teachers teach to modify and shape the student's behavior. It's easy to how operant conditioning can be used for classroom management. There are many behaviors that need to be shaped in order to have an orderly classroom. Wait. Okay. Related again. So si behaviorism daw is more likely nakafocus daw kay student, no? Si student, and si teacher ang parang controller, no? Siya yung nagko-control sa environment ni learner. So sabi dito, si behaviorism daw, all behaviors are learned through interaction with the environment. So ang kasabi ko, ang definition ni behaviorism is all behaviors daw are learned through interaction with the environment. So sa environment, ang nag-create ng environment is si teacher, no? So sinasabi dito na essentialism na si learner daw na i-inherit niya daw yung behavior niya dahil daw sa environment. So ayun. So effective itong learning theory na to through positive and negative reinforcement. So, kailangan ng sustainable, 'di ba kailangan yung type ng learning theory, wait lang. Yung type ng pagtuturo na ganito, kailangan mo ma-sustain, no? Kasi kapag hindi mo na-sustain, hindi siya magiging effective. Ay, nawala. Wait, nawala yung PowerPoint natin. So, konting technical problem. So, ayan. So, without through positive and ayan. So, ayan, bumalik na. So, through positive and ulitin natin. Through positive and negative reinforcement. So, ano ba yung positive reinforcement? Ito yung pagbibigay mo ng stars kay students kapag nakasagot siya or nag-follow siya ng in-implement mo na rules, no? And si negative enforcement naman, ito yung mga punishments, no? More likely punishment. Kunyari, hindi finalo ni student yung gusto mong behavior or yung klase, hindi finalo yung gusto mong setup ng classroom, more likely, babawasan mo sila. More likely, paano ba yun? Pag negative enforcement doon. More likely, hindi ko din sige, ito na lang, i-partner na lang natin siya sa classroom, yung reinforcements na lang. So ibahin na lang natin kasi medyo hindi clear din sa akin. So gawin na lang natin sa classroom, 'di ba? Nasa classroom and si teacher gusto niya pagkapasok niya sa classroom nakabuklat na lahat ng libro, nakaayos na lahat ng chairs. And bago siya lumabas is nakapasok na din lahat ng upuan. Bago siya lumabas, di ba, after mag-class na. So paglalabas na siya, kailangan, paglalabas din yung estudyante, nakapasok na yung upuan sa mga tables nila. So kapag finalo nila yon lahat, si teacher gagawa siya ng positive reinforcement, which is, kunyari, magawa siya ng reward system. Magbibigay si teacher ng fund dun sa class fund, ng pera sa class fund ng classroom. Tapos kapag hindi naman finalo ni students or yung whole classroom yung gusto i-implement ni teacher, ay hindi magbibigay si teacher ng fund dun sa classroom nila. So ayun, that is a example of positive and negative reinforcement. Sorry. So sinasabi din dito si behaviorism daw is information is transferred from teachers to learner. So ang sabi ko is ang sinasabi dito is si teacher ang magiging controller, diba? As in, parang kanina ko pa nire-reiterate na siya yung magiging controller ng environment. So, lahat ng information na sinasabi niya kay learner is siya bahala doon. Kasi, paano ba yan? Answered from teachers. Sit lang. Sorry. So ayun nga, since si teacher ang master and si learner ang more likely follower, kay teacher lahat makukuha lahat ng information. So ganon ang more likely sinasabi ni behaviorism. So sa mga nag-advanced study or medyo medyo naguguluhan. Next natin para next slide kasi actually meron ditong example eh. Pero na-discuss na din natin. Next slide po. If slide natin, ayan. So, ayan na yung example ko na yung kanina. Yun na yung example ko. So, i-end na lang natin ito. Sa mga nag-advanced study na or mga medyo alam na din dito sa learning theory, baka may maguguluhan na din sa inyo kung ano ba pinagkaiba ni behaviorism kay social learning theory, no? Kasi madami naguguluhan doon sa social learning theory. Si behaviorism kasi more likely si teacher or sino man ang nagko-control ng environment, siya yung accountable doon sa learners. However, in social social learning theory is more likely si learner is mag-observe lang niya yung anything, i-observe or i-imitate niya lang, and ayun, gagayahin niya, mayroong interaction. So more likely hindi ganoon katindi yung accountability doon sa ginagaya niya. Kasi itong social learning theory is may internal process. Ito pang example, isang definition ng social learning theory. May internal processing. So, 'di ba? Titignan mo si i-observe mo si teacher, no? I-observe mo siya or any TikTok o mga ganon, mga ganon, sayaw. Titignan mo and observe mo and imitate mo, 'di ba? Sayaw-sayaw ka din. Mayroon internal process kasi gusto mo sumabay sa trend, no? Ito naman, however, in behaviorism, more likely controlled na siya. Wala kang choice ba? Kasi since si teacher is more likely she controlled the environment. So ayun, more likely si behaviorism is more likely will be si teacher ang magiging accountable, si social learning is more likely wala ang nagiging accountable. So ayun lang. Ayun lang. Next reporter, next will be discussed by Jamaica Goho. Next major philosophy, no? Ayun, will be discussed by Jamaica Goho. Ayun lang. Thank you for listening.
Ayun po, welcome back to my channel, charot. Gusto ko po mag-sorry dun sa kanina. Akala ko po kasi hindi nyo narinig. Sorry po. Sorry po. Ayun, don't say bad words, sabi ni mother at father. Ayan, so yan. Linguistic philosophy. Teachers teach to develop the communication skills of the student. Effective communication skills are fundamental to success in numerous aspects of life. Parang kung saan naman tayo lagi magpunta, dapat lagi natin baon yung communication skills. Sabi nga, kapag napunta ka sa isang lugar, kailangan lagi mong dala si Magda para hindi ka maligaw. Laging marunong magtanong. Yan, kung alam niyo yun, share ko lang. Tapos, ito na. A classroom ambience depends heavily on the quality of communication taking place in it. So sa loob daw ng isang room, laging nakasalalay sa pag-usap ng guro at ng estudyante yung ambience ng isang klase. So ayun, muna kayong mag-chat, nalilito ako, hayop kayo. Tapos ito na. Sa laging nakasalalay lagi sa communication between teacher and student ang ambience ng isang classroom. So yon. Effective communication can help to build and encourage a safe learning atmosphere where student can learn, prosper, and thrive. So parang pag daw tayo merong effective communication skills, yun yung makakatulong yun yung makakatulong sa pagkatuto ng isang bata. So, yon. Next slide nga po. Ay, huwag nyo naman ako patawanin. Mama, next slide. Ito. So, ito. Richard Peters. Sino nga ba si Richard Peters? Kasi hindi ko din po siya kilala. Richard Peters, he was an English philosopher. His work belongs mainly to the areas of political theory, philosophical psychology, and philosophy of education. So, yon. His views that education essentially consists in the initiation of individuals into a public tradition. He says that the social world confronts the child, comes the choices. Further, we are told the child has to get on the inside of this world and incorporate in his mental structure. So, yon. Richard Stanley Peters never explicitly talks about wisdom as being an aim of education. He does, however, in numerous places emphasize that education is of the whole person and that whatever else it be about, it involves the development of knowledge and understanding. So, lagi lang daw siyang umiikot sa knowledge at sa pagkatuto. So, next slide po. Yun, doon ako magpupuwalag po. Next slide, Mama. Abi. Next slide po. Ayan. And this he does mainly by learning a language, for a people's language is the key to the form of life which they enjoy. Linguistic philosophy believes that language plays an important role in learning process of a child. So yun na nga po. The language is always believed to play a central role in learning. So hindi naman talaga matututo ang ating mga estudyante kung wala tayong communication between sa kanila. No matter what the subject area, students assimilate new concept when they listen, talk, read, write, and about what they are learning. So paano mo malalaman na natututo sila kung hindi sila nagsasalita at hindi sila nagtatanong. Kaya nga sabi ni kapag may mga talk, kapag ang isang bata ay hindi nagtatanong, ibig sabihin wala siyang natututunan. Pero minsan tama nga yun. Tapos, ito na nga po. Saan na ba yun? Para madaming ways para ma-build up natin ang communication skills ng isang bata. Allow students to share their opinions in the classroom is also a vital way to improve effective communication in students, as their opinions in the classroom will help them to develop communication skills. Teach students to share their thoughts in the classroom. So, yun na nga po, hindi naman pwedeng tayo lang ng tayong guro ang magsasalita sa loob ng isang classroom. Kailangan merong yung mga estudyante natin, tuturuan natin sila kung paano mag-share at doon natin malalaman na may natututunan pala yung estudyante ko kasi nagtatanong siya. 'Di ba? So yun. Tapos, nasa na ako, nawawala na ako. The significance of building good communication at a young age is critical in a child's growth and future learning. So, tayo as elementary teachers, sa atin magsisimula yung sa atin bukod sa bahay, 'di ba? Sabi nila ang unang pagkatuto ay nagsisimula sa bahay. Pagdating nila sa school, tayo namang mga teachers yung magtuturo sa kanila. So, ito siguro nga kaya po ako madaldalay ako ay nung bata ay talaga namang laging madaldal sa klase at kaya po nadala na sa college. Pero minsan po, hindi naman lahat ng mga tahimik po, tulad po ngayon sa college na, ngayong college na po, chika na. Hindi po lahat ng tahimik ay minsan po yung mga tahimik yung talagang mga halimaw kong kaklase. Yung mga gagaling, yung mga nasa likod. Hindi ka po pag tawag dito, chika na lang to ma'am, chika na lang po. Hindi na po ito kasama dun sa topic ko. Tawag dito po. Wait lang, okay na nga, next topic na nga. Moving on to the next topic, the philosophy of constructivism. Miss Jamie Ortega will discuss it. Girl, it's your time to shine.
Thank you, Jamaica. Okay, I am Drew Jamie O. Ortega from BEED 21D, and for the last major philosophy of education, which is constructivism, teachers teach to enable students to construct knowledge. Okay, sa constructivism from the root word construct, which is to build or to produce new knowledge, nakafocus yung constructivism sa capabilities ng students na maggawa or mag-produce ng sarili nilang knowledge through experiences rather than pag-gather lang ng data or ng information na tinuturo natin sa kanila. Also, yung constructivism, kino-consider siya na best major philosophy of education kasi learner-centered siya, focuses sa application ng knowledge, and fosters critical thinking through experiences. Kasi tulad nga ng sinabi ko kanina, parang mas natututo yung bata or nakakakuha siya ng maraming information and knowledge kapag nararanasan niya mismo, or tulad ng sinabi ni Jamaica sa existentialism kanina, mas natututo or nahihikayat yung bata na matuto kapag nahahawakan niya or nakikita niya mismo or nararanasan niya mismo yung lesson or topic na gusto nating ituro. Next slide po. So, Si von Glasersfeld, he was known as the founder of constructivism, where he repeatedly affirms that the core thesis of radical constructivism are as follows. Next slide po. Next slide po, Abby. Yung sa una, first, knowledge is actively constructed by the cognizing subject, not passively received from the environment. Aware naman po tayo na lahat na yung mga primary students tends to learn through things that they recognize by feeling or touching or yung nakikita mismo nila. So yung sa first core, meaning niya na parang yung learners ino-obtain or nakukuha niya yung knowledge through understanding and sa pag-recognize ng subject, kaysa sa nakikita niya lang or natatanggap niya lang mula sa ibang tao or sa environment, which can be interpreted as people or yung environment niya. And this is what the first core thesis of radical constructivists wanted to imply. Sa second naman, coming to know is an adaptive process that organizes one's experiential world. It does not discover an independent, pre-existing world outside the mind of the knower. So second, yung learning is process yun ng pag-collect and pag-organize ng world experiences ng isang tao or ng isang bata para matuto. Ayun yung parang mini-mean or gustong iparating ng second na radical thesis, ay radical constructivist. Next slide po. Okay, sa differences naman, before tayo mag-proceed or before natin i-end yung webinar, let me just give you a comparison or maikling recap or yung differences na rin about sa 7 major philosophies ng education. Yung una is essentialism. Yung essentialism, siya yung nagpo-produce ulit ng mga learners na merong basic knowledge, skills, and values. Sa second naman, which is the progressivism, ang pinoproduce naman niyang learners ay mga intelligent citizens of a democratic country. Sa third naman, yung perennialism, ayun naman, pinoproduce naman doon yung mga learners na kayang mag-isip rationally and critically or can think out of the box. Or yung parang mas malalim na pag-intindi. Sa pang-apat naman, which is the existentialism, pinoproduce naman doon yung mga learners na kayang i-define yung sarili nilang essence or purpose. Sa 5 naman, sa 5th, yung behaviorism, yun naman, pinoproduce doon yung learners na yung behavior nila is, yung behavior nila has been shaped or modified through the environment or yung mga nakikita nila. Tulad nung binigay na example ni John Michael na yung sa teacher, yung parang yung behavior ng students parang hindi naman siya nakadepende pero parang connected or related sa kung ano yung nakikita nila sa environment nila or sa teachers nila. Yung sa pang-6 naman is the linguistic philosophy which can produce learners who can communicate effectively. Ito yung mga learners na, dito natin hinuhubog yung mga learners na parang binibigyan natin sila ng communication skills para kaya nilang i-express yung sarili nila through communication. And yung the last one is constructivism. Ayun naman, pinoproduce natin yung learners na kayang mag-construct or bumuo ng sarili nilang knowledge or skills through their experiences. So, meron po bang questions tungkol doon? Mag-raise hand na lang po kung may question po. And heart button naman po if wala na pong questions. Okay, ang dami pong heart. So, wala na pong questions for that. That's all. Now, to end this webinar, let's have Abigail Reyes.
Okay, Jamie, thank you for telling us the last major philosophy and a brief summary. As an additional, so these philosophies of education, they all differ in their concepts of learning and values. So what do I mean by that? So meron tayong tatlong differences doon. First is their objectives. What do they teach? Why do they teach? Then the second one is the curriculum. why do they teach? And the third one is their teaching strategies, or how should the curriculum be taught. So after the long talk that we've done, to make sure that you've learned and understand what we discussed today, you can scan the QR code that is in your screen right now, or access the link that we'll be sending later. Then lastly, this is the references para naman to make sure na yung mga pinagsasabi namin sa inyo ay talaga namang makabuluhan. And yan, so I also want to give recognition to these people for being here with us today. Si Kiana, Jamaica, Jody Bial, Jamie, and John Michael for being here with us and making this webinar possible. And yun lang, we hope that you're able to gain and digest all the things you've heard from us. We'll be looking forward to your responses in our evaluation link. Thank you for being here and staying active until the end. Ma'am, tapos na po.
Okay, tapos na po. Okay po, tapos na po. Okay, overrun tayo. Shall I proceed with my PowerPoint o rest na muna kayo kasi ang klase ninyo mamaya